Hello, welcome to my December reading wrap-up. This year is almost over. Thank goodness. Good riddance 2020. So today I'm going to go over the books that I finished reading in December. So we have these 4 plus 3 audiobooks and an ebook. So I definitely did a lot of reading during this stay-at-home order. So the first one was fitting. Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily Nagoski and Amelia Nagoski. I believe they're sibs. They're siblings. So this was an audiobook. It's nonfiction, more in the self-help realm. This book was really, really good. So this book pretty much covers how, not just burnout, but how burnout is different, and how women experience burnout differently than men. And they explain a lot of the different factors that go into that, and also applicable strategies that can be used when burnout occurs. So what you can do to complete the biological stress cycle, how to manage the monitor in your brain that regulates the emotion of frustration, why rest, human connection, and befriending your inner critic are keys to recovering and preventing burnout. There's also a lot of discussion about patriarchy. Oh my gosh, my pronunciation. Anyway, and how the gender roles for men and women, and like how that differs, and like just how that also influences burnout. So I listened to the audiobook, and it was a pretty quick listen, actually. I don't know how big the in-person hold in your hand book is, but it was pretty quick, and I felt like it was really, really helpful in just understanding women and burnout, and then also just like applicable steps to manage burnout. So yeah, that is Burnout. I love how burnout is just typed over and over again. So that book is really good, and I actually highly, highly recommend it. The next book, also an audiobook. This one, I started reading earlier in the year, and then I kind of paused it because I wanted to listen to the audiobook since it was also read by the author. And that's like my thing now is if the audio version is read by the author, I'm just gonna listen to the audiobook, because I think because it's the writer, I don't know, I feel like the words that are said and the descriptions and the storytelling and everything is so much more powerful, I feel like, because it's coming from the author. So this one is Sigh, Gone, a Memoir by Phuc Tran. That's his picture as a kid. Look how cute. So this book is a memoir, so it's also within the nonfiction realm. And with this is, Phuc talks about his experience immigrating here, and then assimilation, and also assimilation within a predominantly like 99% Caucasian area, and what that was like for him. Also with his parents, there was a lot of descriptions of his family, and really, really scary event that they experienced prior to coming to the States, and also the experience of his father had at his workplace. That for me was like, that really like struck a nerve, just how like his father was treated, made fun of for his accent, and it was just like gut-wrenching, I think, for me in a way. But it talks about his story and Phuc's story, and going through elementary school and then high school, and his love for music and reading. So I thought it was a really, really good book, especially like the end. Like, I'm not going to spoil it, but like the ending, and then like the event that he had spoken at, and just his experience with like his parents was, I felt like, very, very powerful, and something a lot of us, do experience. So this book is really good. And so, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I'd say if you do want to check it out, I definitely recommend the audiobook. There's also some great music at the end. So this is Saigon by Phuc Tran. The next one is an ebook. So this one was actually on my most anticipated reads for 2020. And like a lot of books, just with the pandemic and everything, I believe the release date was postponed a little. So it came out a little later in the year, but that's okay. And I was super excited for it, just because I've watched a few episodes of his Netflix show, as well as listened to his podcast. So this is Eat a Peach with Eat a Peach by David Chang. And so this is a memoir, and David Chang is a entrepreneur. He started out in the restaurant business in New York, and he became known for the Momofuku company. He also had a show on Netflix called Ugly Delicious, where each episode was like a different food item, and then they went to like different parts of the world and talked about it, which was really cool. And then he also has a podcast. So this book talks about his experience in the restaurant industry. I learned a lot about the restaurant industry and like just the culinary field. It was really cool to learn about like the creativity that can go into food. And for him, he very much wanted to combine different types of cuisines. And so he's super creative. And it also talks about his experience just with culture and race, and being Asian American, and what that was like for him, as well as he does briefly touch on his experience with mental illness. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so there's bits of that, and just his experience going to see a therapist and psychiatrist. The book is mainly centered around the restaurant business, and not so much the mental illness component, which is fine. I think that's actually a positive thing in a way, because I read a lot of books and I've read a lot of memoirs, and for some of them, like, the mental health component was like the entire thing, and that's totally fine. But it's also important to read memoirs where you get the overall picture of the person's entire identity. And with mental illness, that's not the person's sole and only defining factor. So this book was a good way to kind of get that experience as a reader. Like, yeah, he's living with a mental illness, but then he's also like a father now, and got married. He is Asian American. He's an entrepreneur. There's so many so many ways to define a person, and it isn't just limited to just mental illness, and it really shouldn't be. So that is Eat a Peach by David Chang. The next one is an audiobook. And this one is actually, I started this one last month, and then I finished it this month, I believe. So, and it's actually very much this audiobook is the reason why, I'm super, super really into to audiobooks is this one. So it's Here for It. Love the cover and the confetti. By R. Eric Thomas. Here for It. Or How to Save Your Soul in America. So the author is great, and the narration of it is also great. And so pretty much he talks about his experience being Black. He's also very religious and gay, and just also what's interesting too, and which is like a huge component of the book, is like not really realizing that he was like quote unquote different, right? And that this is mainly based off of like, you know, just his experience with like race and like what he saw. There was like a comical part in the story as well, where he like he became famous on the internet like accidentally because he was writing about like race, and there was this like big uproar because the readers like and the community and everyone thought the writer was like a white individual writing about that, but it was that he's actually Black. So there was a lot of, you know, uproar with that, and he talks about his experience like just witnessing that all and what that was like. So highly recommend this. He also talks about his experience in college and going to an Ivy League school, what that was like, and finds the answers to these questions by re-envisioning what normal means. So this was a really great listen, and it's a really good book. So highly recommend that. Here for it. The next one is a book I finished this month, and I started reading it for the Family Caregivers Awareness Month. So if you're interested in books about family caregiver, definitely check out the previous IGTV with that title. So this is Wherever You Are, a memoir of love, marriage, and brain injury by Cynthia Lim. And so this book was so good. It looks like small, but there's a lot in here. And so essentially what happened is Cynthia, her husband, when they were actually on a trip, like they were vacationing somewhere, her husband experienced a cardiac arrest, and through that lost some oxygen to his brain and ended up experiencing a brain injury. And after that, then there was a big recovery process leading up to and through her experience being her husband's caregiver. So this is something that was very, very unexpected. With a lot of what we think of when it comes to caregiving, and even with a lot of the books out there, it's like older adults, you know, like older aging adults, like this is coming with the aging process, or whether it's Alzheimer's or just the decline in the physical body and all that. But, you know, there isn't so much out there when it comes to the unexpectedness of being a caregiver sometimes when something happens. And also this is from the spouse's perspective. So I thought that was really, really interesting, and how she took on that caregiving role. So I highly recommend this book, and it was also really, really interesting and heartwarming to read about her relationship with her husband. They had been together since they were young. He was a attorney, and she worked, I believe, in the education system. So yeah, Los Angeles Unified School District. So it was interesting to read about her perspective and seeing like her husband, who was highly successful, and then what happened with the decline and how he needed help with things. I'm really amazed too that she managed to continue working too during this whole process. Like when he was in the hospital, trying to figure out like legalities and health insurance and all that, which is like a whole nother monster, you know, and can of worms. Like, talk about confusing. Figuring all that out. So I mean, I'm so amazed that she like worked through this entire process. So, and she does talk about, you know, her kids and all that. So this was a really good book. So if you're interested in learning about, you know, caregiving, if you know someone or you yourself are a caregiver, definitely check out Wherever You Are by Cynthia Lim. The next one is a book I heard a lot about. So I was curious. And that is It's Okay That You're Not Okay, Meeting Grief and Loss in a Culture That Doesn't Understand by Devine. Sorry. My Japanese tends to mess up my pronunciation with E's and I's because it's like opposite, especially when they're close together in a word. Anyway, It's Okay That You're Not Okay. If you're a book reader, you have probably seen this like everywhere, this cover. And so what this book is about is the grief process, like grief and loss, but specifically when it's unexpected and very much like outside of the timeline of things, like say a child death, died by suicide, an accident, something unexpected where the result is the person died. And the author of this book experienced this herself, and she's also has a master's in counseling. So what's cool about this one is you get the experience, like the personal experience, but then you also get like the clinical aspect of it. So there's a lot of really good information in here, as you can see by my annotations. Highly recommend this. I read this as a therapist, but also someone who recently experienced an unexpected loss. So super helpful. I feel like the information is described and put out there in a way where it's just like an easy read as far as like understanding the information, not so much like the topic, because the topic is really hard. But there's also really great like actionable steps to do within the grief process. So this book is wonderful. It's Okay That You're Not Okay, Meeting Grief and Loss in a Culture That Doesn't Understand. Okay. The next book is an author that I'm a fan of because I've completed his trainings and he is wonderful. And that is The Happiness Trap, How to Stop Struggling and Start Living by Russ Harris. This is based on the ACT model, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. It was created by Stephen Hayes, but the author of this book, Russ Harris, is one of the lead trainers for ACT. And I've done his trainings. I've even done his advanced trainings for using it with depression and anxiety. And it's great. Let me tell you too, like, especially during a time of like the pandemic when everything's so unexpected, ACT is super powerful and can be super helpful. And so this is for the user. So this is someone who is wanting to apply it to themselves, not so much like for therapists. I mean, therapists could read it, but this is mainly for someone who wants to use the application of it. And it is very much applicable in a really concrete and simple way. It's really laid out. So someone who reads this, if the reader like resonates with this, and they'll probably resonate with the ACT model, and a therapist who uses the ACT model in their therapy sessions, which for me, that's one of the ones I use. So essentially the ACT is essentially like, if you're experiencing distress, you're experiencing, you know, certain distressing thoughts and feelings, it's probably understandable for sure, but also there's like a reason for it. Like if we think like within the pandemic, it makes sense why someone's gonna have concerns, you know, as far as like possibly getting sick or really thinking and worrying about like going outside and all the precautions. Like these are real concerns and it makes sense to have them. And right now, probably gonna keep you pretty safe, right? So even though it's happening, what can be done, because there's going to be a lot of distress within there. So within the ACT model, it's essentially like there are different strategies that can be implemented so that the person can continue to move forward in their life, and also in a way that is very in line with the person they want to be in the face of this challenge, and how to get through it. You know, essentially our brain has evolved and is wired to have us worry. If that is happening, then your brain is doing its job. So we can't control the thoughts and feelings. But what can happen is how you respond to the thoughts and feelings in a way that is helpful and effective. So super, super helpful book. I've read his other books as well. This one, though, I feel like pretty much can be applicable to anyone in like any type of situation. So that is The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. The last book was so good. Like it's Loathe at First Sight, a novel by Suzanne Park. If you're a book reader, you've probably seen this cover a lot. She has written a different book that I believe is a YA. And so this is an adult fiction. And essentially what this is about the main character who works in a predominantly male-dominated company in the game industry, video game industry. Like she's one of like 3 or so women at the company. And so this book talks about her experience with that, and like just like sexism and kind of this like toxic like work environment. Her boss was like not the nicest human as well, and she experienced a lot of like comments, but due to a series of events became very much noticed at the company and had like a major role. So this book talks about that, as well as her experience being Asian American and her experience with her parents, and just that expectation too of like, when are you getting married? Do you have a boyfriend? Preferably is he Asian? You know, those types of things we hear. So it talks about that. And so I know nothing about video games. So for me, this was like really interesting for me to like read about. And also the author, yes, because she wrote the book. The character is hilarious, and like some of the comments are just so funny, like the commentary. So I can't recommend this enough. I think I read this in like a week or so. Like I really read this quick, even though it's like looks thick. Like it's definitely a fun read, and I believe the author as well has worked in like the techie industry and like predominantly male industries and companies. So that is Loathe at First Sight by Suzanne Park. So these are the books, if you jumped on late, which is these 4 plus an ebook, Eat a Peach by David Chang, and 3 audiobooks, Saigon, Burnout, and Here for It. So hopefully this was entertaining or helpful. Maybe you found your next read that you could start reading in 2021. I have an extensive TBR, and I'm super excited for some of the new books that are coming out. So coming in January, I will be continuing to do lives, as well as I will also be moving forward with the podcast. If you haven't watched it already, the 2021 trailer is live for listen. It's like a few minutes, so you just kind of get an idea of like what to expect for this upcoming year. So if you want to listen to it, you can click the website link in the profile of this Instagram page. So I'm super excited for that. As far as the lives, I'll be doing something new for January. I did a poll previously asking like if my followers would be interested in me doing unboxings, and the unanimous vote was yes. So I subscribed to a few monthly subscription boxes, so I'm gonna do unboxing in January on these. These are the December ones. So this is the New Suns box, their December one. So excited. Every like month they have a different theme, and it's very much like within the Black, Indigenous, people of color realm. That's their mission. So I'm super excited about that. And then the other one that I'll be unboxing is the Fulton Street Books and Coffee box for their December, the December monthly box. And this is the Ally One box. So Fulton Street, they have like multiple different types of subscription boxes, and I got the Ally One, and that is pretty much to bring awareness about the POC Black culture. So I'm super excited. I'll be unboxing these, and I'll release the dates for those lives. I'm gonna do 2 separate lives for these, as well as a third live a third and fourth, because I'm still gonna do the January reading wrap up, but I'm thinking of a third and like kind of what theme. I haven't really found a January like monthly observance that's within kind of the mental health realm, but I'm open to suggestions. So if there's a certain book theme that you want me to talk about for January, let me know, and then I can put that up as one of the lives. So thank you very, very much for watching, and hopefully you have a good rest of the last day in 2020. Take care. Bye-bye.